The moment they walked through the doors of Willow Creek Vineyard's reception hall, the whispers began. David Chen, dressed in a navy suit that had seen better days, stood awkwardly at the entrance, his hands fidgeting with his tie. But it wasn't his nervous demeanor drawing stares, it was the woman beside him. Despite her clean clothes and carefully combed hair, Meredith's weathered face and hesitant posture revealed what everyone immediately recognized: she didn't belong in this world of crystal champagne flutes and designer dresses. As Rebecca, the bride and David's ex-wife of 5 years, looked up from across the room, the smile froze on her face. The champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble floor in a sound that seemed to echo through the suddenly silent room. No one could have predicted how this wedding day would end, with long-buried secrets revealed, tears flowing freely, and lives forever changed by a truth hidden for nearly 3 decades. If you're already intrigued by this incredible story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more real-life tales that remind us how deeply connected our human journeys truly are. Stay with me until the end, I promise the revelation will leave you speechless. David Chen checked his watch for the 4th time in 10 minutes. The late afternoon sun filtered through his apartment blinds, casting long shadows across the living room where his 13-year-old daughter Lily adjusted her junior bridesmaid dress in front of the mirror. "Dad, are you even listening? I said Mom wants us there by 5 for the family photos," Lily said, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Sorry, sweetheart. Just making sure we're on time." David forced a smile, though his stomach had been in knots all day. After 5 years, he should be over the divorce, but watching Rebecca marry someone else, someone wealthier, more successful, felt like reopening a wound he'd convinced himself had healed. At 45, David had settled into his life as a high school science teacher and single father. His modest 2-bedroom apartment was nothing like the sprawling suburban house Rebecca now shared with her fiancé James, but it was home. The walls were lined with bookshelves, framed photos of Lily at various ages, and the telescope David used for stargazing with his daughter on clear nights. "You look beautiful," he told Lily, his throat tightening. "Just like your mom." Lily rolled her eyes but smiled. "Mom says I have your stubborn chin. And my brilliant scientific mind," he added, tapping her nose playfully. They were heading out when Mrs. Gonzalez from next door knocked, apologizing that she couldn't watch their elderly golden retriever Max as promised. Her sister had been in a minor car accident, and she needed to get to the hospital. "It's fine, Mrs. G. Family comes first," David assured her, though panic bubbled beneath his calm exterior. The wedding venue was an hour away, and they were already cutting it close. "We can take Max," Lily suggested, but David shook his head. "It's too hot to leave him in the car, and your mom would have a fit if we brought a dog to her wedding." They stood in silence until David made a decision. "Let's go. We'll figure it out when we get there." The drive to Willow Creek Vineyard was tense. Lily texted her mother updates while Max panted happily in the back seat, oblivious to their dilemma. The GPS led them through winding country roads until the vineyard appeared, rolling hills covered in neat rows of grapevines, with a stone reception hall perched at the highest point. "We're late," Lily said anxiously as David parked under a large oak tree. "Mom's going to freak out." "Go ahead," David urged. "Tell your mom I'll be there in a few minutes. I just need to sort out Max first." After Lily reluctantly departed, David sat with Max, contemplating his limited options. The ceremony would start in 20 minutes, and he had no solution. He considered missing it entirely, but knew that would hurt Lily and probably start another argument with Rebecca. That's when he noticed a woman sitting alone on a bench near the vineyard's entrance. She wore a simple gray dress that had seen better days, and her brown hair streaked with silver was pulled back in a neat bun. Something about her stillness, her separation from the wedding bustle, made David pause. Before he could reconsider, he was walking toward her, Max trotting beside him. "Excuse me," he said when he reached her. "I'm sorry to bother you." The woman looked up, revealing a face with fine lines around the eyes and mouth, a face that had weathered life's storms but maintained a quiet dignity. She appeared to be in her early 50s. "Can I help you?" Her voice was soft but clear. "I'm in a bit of a bind," David explained. "I'm supposed to be at my ex-wife's wedding, but my dog-sitter cancelled last minute. I can't leave Max in the car, and I don't know what to do." The woman studied him, then glanced at Max, who was sniffing curiously at her worn canvas bag. "He seems friendly," she said, reaching out to let Max sniff her hand. "I could watch him for you." Relief washed over David, quickly followed by doubt. He was about to entrust his beloved pet to a complete stranger who appeared to be, what? Homeless? Down on her luck? As if reading his thoughts, the woman smiled slightly. "My name is Meredith. I used to be a veterinary technician before things changed." She gestured to a small sketchbook beside her. "I come here sometimes to draw. The owners don't mind as long as I stay out of the way." There was something in her manner, a quiet strength, that made David trust her. "I'm David," he said, extending his hand. "And this is Max. The ceremony should only be about an hour, then there's a reception. I could bring you some food, as a thank you." Meredith shook his hand firmly. "That would be nice." David handed over Max's leash and a small bag containing water and treats. "He's gentle, but he pulls sometimes when he gets excited." "We'll be fine," Meredith assured him. "Go, before you're any later." David hurried toward the ceremony site, glancing back once to see Meredith already engaged in a game of gentle tug-of-war with Max. Something about the scene made his chest tighten, this stranger showing such immediate kindness. The ceremony was already underway when David slipped into a seat at the back. Rebecca was radiant in a designer gown, her blonde hair swept up elegantly. James, tall and distinguished with salt and pepper hair, looked at her with obvious adoration. David felt a pang of something, not jealousy exactly, but nostalgia for when Rebecca had once looked at him that way. Lily, standing beside her mother as junior bridesmaid, caught his eye and gave a small, relieved smile. He nodded back, trying to convey that everything was fine. As vows were exchanged and rings placed on fingers, David found his thoughts drifting to Meredith. What circumstances had led someone who spoke of being a veterinary technician to apparently living on the margins? The contrast between her situation and the opulence surrounding him, champagne flowing freely, floral arrangements that must have cost thousands, felt jarring. After the ceremony, as guests mingled during cocktail hour, David slipped away to check on Max. He found Meredith and his dog exactly where he'd left them, now sitting peacefully in the shade. Max's head rested contentedly on Meredith's lap as she sketched. "He's a wonderful companion," Meredith said as David approached. "Very well behaved." "Thank you for watching him," David replied, sitting down beside her. "The ceremony's over, but the reception's just starting. Would you like to join us for some food? There's plenty." The invitation surprised them both. Meredith hesitated, glancing down at her simple dress. "I'm not exactly dressed for a wedding." "Neither is Max," David said with a smile. "But I'd like you to come. As my guest. It's the least I can do." Perhaps it was impulsive, perhaps it was the desire not to face the reception alone, or perhaps it was genuine curiosity about this woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. Whatever the reason, David found himself genuinely wanting Meredith's company. After a moment's consideration, Meredith nodded. "If you're sure it won't cause problems." "It's my ex-wife's wedding," David said with a wry smile. "Problems are practically guaranteed, with or without unexpected guests." They walked together toward the reception hall, Max trotting between them. David was acutely aware of the stares they attracted, the science teacher in his modest suit, the woman in her worn gray dress, and the elderly golden retriever making their way into the elegant celebration. Rebecca noticed them immediately. She broke away from a conversation with her new in-laws, her expression a mixture of confusion and annoyance as she approached. "David," she said tightly, "what's going on? And why is Max here?" Before David could explain, Lily bounded over, dropping to her knees to hug Max. "You brought him." "Hi, buddy." "Mrs. Gonzalez had a family emergency," David explained to Rebecca. "This is Meredith. She kindly offered to help out, and I invited her to join us for the reception as thanks." Rebecca's eyes darted between David and Meredith, clearly trying to determine if this was some kind of statement or sabotage. After an uncomfortable moment, her wedding manners prevailed. "Well, thank you for helping, Meredith. Please, enjoy the celebration." Her smile didn't reach her eyes as she added, "David, can I speak with you privately?" As they stepped away, Rebecca hissed, "What were you thinking? Bringing a strange woman, a homeless woman, to my wedding?" "She helped me out of a tough spot," David replied evenly. "She's been nothing but kind and dignified. I thought returning that kindness was the right thing to do." Rebecca studied him for a moment. "Is this some kind of point you're trying to make? About me marrying James?" "Not everything is about you, Becca," David said, the old nickname slipping out unintentionally. "Sometimes people just do kind things for each other without ulterior motives." Something in his tone must have reached her because Rebecca's expression softened slightly. "Fine. But please keep the dog outside. James's mother is allergic." As Rebecca returned to her guests, David rejoined Meredith, who was standing awkwardly near a table, Max at her feet. "I can leave if this is causing problems," she offered quietly. "Absolutely not," David replied firmly. "You're my guest, and you're welcome here." He led her to the buffet, where they filled plates with elegant hors d'oeuvres and slices of prime rib. David sneaked a few pieces of meat into a napkin for Max, who would need to stay on the terrace outside the main hall. They found a table near the edge of the room, somewhat removed from the other guests. As they ate, David found himself sharing more than he'd intended, about his teaching career, about Lily, about the divorce that had left him questioning his worth. "Rebecca and I met in graduate school," he explained. "We were both studying biology, though she went into pharmaceutical research and I chose teaching. We had such big dreams. Had Lily a few years after we married. But somewhere along the way, we just drifted. Rebecca wanted more, bigger house, better vacations, private schools for Lily. I was content with what we had. Teaching doesn't make you rich, but I love what I do." Meredith listened attentively, offering neither judgment nor platitudes. When she finally spoke, her words carried the weight of someone who had seen much of life's complexity. "Sometimes the hardest thing is recognizing when two good people simply want different things from life," she said. "It doesn't make either of you wrong." There was something in her tone, a personal understanding, that made David curious. "Have you been married?" Meredith nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of her water glass. "Once. A lifetime ago." Before she could elaborate, the DJ announced the first dance. All eyes turned to Rebecca and James as they moved gracefully across the dance floor to "At Last," by Etta James. David watched, surprised to find the expected pain muted, replaced by a genuine hope that Rebecca had found what she needed. "They look happy," Meredith observed. "They do," David agreed. "And that's a good thing." As the evening progressed, David and Meredith continued talking, finding unexpected common ground. Meredith had been passionate about animal rescue before circumstances changed, as she put it. David shared his love of astronomy, his weekend stargazing trips with Lily. They discovered they'd both grown up in the same part of the state, though years apart. Lily joined them occasionally, clearly curious about Meredith but too polite to ask direct questions. She brought Max treats from the buffet and updated David on the wedding gossip, how Uncle Steve was already drunk, how her cousin Emma was flirting with one of James's groomsmen. During a lull in the conversation, Meredith excused herself to use the restroom. In her absence, Lily leaned toward her father. "She's nice," she said simply. "How do you know her?" "I just met her today," David admitted. "She was kind enough to watch Max when we were in a bind." Lily considered this. "Mom thinks you brought her to make some kind of statement." David sighed. "Your mom sometimes thinks everything I do is about her." "Is it?" Lily asked, with the directness only a 13-year-old could manage. "Not this time," David said honestly. "Meredith needed a meal, and I needed help with Max. Sometimes it's that simple." When Meredith returned, the three of them sat together as the celebration continued around them. David noticed how Meredith occasionally closed her eyes when the music grew too loud, how she seemed to savor each bite of food as if committing it to memory. There were stories there, beneath the surface, that he found himself wanting to know. As the evening wore on, Rebecca made her way to their table during a break in the dancing. She'd had a few glasses of champagne, enough to soften her earlier irritation. "I hope you're enjoying yourselves," she said, her gaze including Meredith in a way it hadn't before. "It's a beautiful wedding," Meredith replied sincerely. "Thank you for allowing me to attend, especially on such short notice." Rebecca studied Meredith with new interest. "David said you helped with Max. You work with animals?" "I used to," Meredith said. "A long time ago." Something in Meredith's voice, a hint of loss, made Rebecca pause. For a moment, the bride's practiced smile slipped, revealing genuine curiosity. "You look familiar somehow," Rebecca said, tilting her head slightly. "Have we met before?" The question hung in the air. David tensed, ready to intervene if necessary, but Meredith answered calmly. "I don't think so. I have one of those faces people often think they recognize." Rebecca seemed about to say something else when James appeared at her side, wrapping an arm around her waist. "There you are. Your grandmother is asking for you. She wants to leave soon but insists on saying goodbye first." Rebecca allowed herself to be led away, glancing back once with a puzzled expression. "Do you know Rebecca?" David asked when they were alone again. Meredith shook her head, but something in her eyes, a flicker of something unreadable, made David wonder. Before he could probe further, the DJ announced it was time for the bouquet toss. Lily ran to join the cluster of single women, leaving David and Meredith alone at the table. "You don't have to tell me your story," David said after a moment. "But I get the feeling there's more to you than you're letting on." Meredith was quiet for so long that David thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible above the music. "Everyone has a past, David. Some are just more complicated than others." The music shifted to a slow song, and couples filled the dance floor. In the dimmed lighting, with candles flickering on the tables, the reception had taken on a dreamlike quality. "Would you like to dance?" David asked impulsively. Meredith looked startled. "I haven't danced in years." "Neither have I," David admitted. "But maybe that's all the more reason to try." After a moment's hesitation, Meredith nodded. They moved to the edge of the dance floor, where David awkwardly placed his hand on her waist. As they swayed to the music, he noticed a small scar near her temple, partially hidden by her hair. "Car accident," she said, catching his glance. "Long time ago." David nodded, not pressing for details. They danced in comfortable silence, two strangers finding unexpected connection amid the celebration of others' love. When the song ended, they returned.